Welcome back to ZMS Esports Studio, your home for all things virtual cycling and virtual racing. So you're joined today, of course, by me, your host, Mark. And before we go any further, I want to say a huge thank you to James, aka Jim Ogilvie, for very kindly stepping in for me during a time when I had a family commitment. So thank you so much, Jim. You did a wonderful, wonderful job. So give Jim a round of applause if you can. And so we continue with our Chase the Yellow series here on ZMS Esports Studio, our way of celebrating the ongoing Tour de France with you. It's 9 stages of racing fun, and what are those 9 stages? Well, we have zipped our way through stages 1 through 6. Saturday with Jim Ogilvie being Mont Ventoux, and today we continue stage 7, Sion, and stage 8 is coming up on Thursday, Montvernier, and closing us out, stage 9 on Saturday coming will be Versailles to Paris. But let's take a closer look at Sion stage 7. Well, we are going once again through some very picturesque countryside in France, and I'm sure yet again a wonderful tourist advertisement, not just with the Tour de France, but here with Chase the Yellow for visits to France with a 38.2 kilometer trip through a valley in the Alpine region in southeastern France, ending up in the, I believe, Catholic monastery region of Sion. And it's only 96 meters of climbing, so this is going to be a sprinter's paradise, that's for certain. And being in the valley, we are beginning a point of elevation with lots of downhills. So if our sprinters are feeling especially psychotic today, they can attack those downhills and they will be able to hopefully come to the fore. So we may see some upsets. Maybe the Rolliers will be out of the picture today if there's teamwork for the engines of the team to give draft benefit to the sprinters. Maybe we will see these sprinters really put in that extra special charge to get across that finish line first. And speaking about who's going to get across that finish line first, who are the teams that are going to be taking on today's course? Well, here you can see our spread of 16 teams. And we have a lot of OTR teams, so why don't we jump on over and begin with OTR? And let's begin with OTR punchers. But of course, not forgetting OTR Spartans. And they are followed by the team of the European Flyers, Moonriders. And speaking about Europe, let's stay in Central Europe, going a little bit north into the lowest point of Scandinavia. We are looking at E-Cycle Club Denmark Team 1. And continuing our Scandinavian theme, we have E-Cycle Club Denmark Team 2. And we have a very special union team between Pedalers and West London Virtual Racing, or WLVR for short, West London Pedalers. Going a bit north, out of England and into Scotland, we have Glasgow United Cycling Club. And truly an international team here, we have Race 3R. A team that I'm sure you've seen across this tour of Chase the Yellow, have some very impressive riders, Rezio Racing. Now as we drop beneath the equator, heading into the southern hemisphere, we have RGT Australia's The Bike Place. And continuing with Australia, we have Skippy Anderson. And a team of very fierce sprinters, maybe their day today, we have Cadell Sharks. And for the female RGT Australia team, we have Spratty's Koalas. And who can forget Stewie's Magpies? And hoping to live up to the rocket part of that name, I'm sure, we have Rocket Robbie. And last, but certainly not least, we have Oppie's Stars. So now that we've seen the contenders who are going to be tackling today's tarmac, why don't we take a look at the GC, otherwise known as General Classification, or to put it in layman's terms, the results so far. So these are cumulative times for all stages so far for both riders and teams, and we're beginning with men's GCs. So holding on very tightly to that top spot is Jonathan Orr from Race 3R with a cumulative time of 5 hours, 40 minutes and 22 seconds. Very impressive time. But hot on the heels of Mr. Orr is E-Cycle Club Denmark Team 1's Kasper Hederdem. He is 2 minutes and 50 seconds behind Jonathan in the cumulative time, and that is 5 hours, 43 minutes and 12 seconds. 6 minutes and 49 seconds behind Jonathan is Igor Kopse of Razio Racing, 5 hours, 47 minutes and 12 seconds. Bo Duke has been putting in a fierce effort as a sprinter, as we've seen with those pace lines in Cadel Sharks. He is 7 minutes and 11 behind Jonathan. That is 5 hours, 47 minutes and 34 seconds. Rounded out our top 5 also with Race 3R is Said Keradine. 5 hours, 47 and 45 seconds, making him 7 minutes and 22 seconds behind his teammate Jonathan Orr. So now we've looked at the top 5 of the men's, but what about the women's GC? Well, as you can see here, Spratty's Koalas are still the team to beat when it comes to women in the Chase the Yellow Tour. Kat Coleman still holding very strong onto that top spot, 7 hours, 32 minutes and 59 seconds in cumulative time across all 6 stages so far. Melissa Fanning is barely seconds behind there, certainly under 30 seconds, 27 seconds behind with 7 hours, 33 minutes and 27 seconds. Michelle Williams is also against Betty's Koalas, 4 minutes, 43 seconds behind Kat Coleman, and that is 7 hours, 37 minutes and 43 seconds. Continuing the theme of Spratty's Koalas, rounded out the top 4 out of the top 5 is Wendy Gallagher, aka Wendy Wonderwheels. So 1 hour, 1 minute and 10 seconds behind Kat Coleman, 8 hours, 34 minutes and 10 seconds. Judy Frankel, who's rounded out the top 5 here, is 1 hour, 41 minutes and 8 seconds behind for 9 hours, 14 minutes and 8 seconds. Some very impressive times across the board here. But having seen how the individual contenders round out the GC, what does that do for the team GCs? Well, let's take a look. So we can see that Race 3R have managed to once again usurp Cadel Sharks. So for their cumulative time as a team, so that's first man through to last man, or first rider through to last rider, the whole team across the finish line, all times for all stages, rounding out to 17 hours, 30 minutes and 25 seconds. Barely a minute, or under a minute I should say, 47 seconds behind is Cadel Sharks, so there's going to be some fierce competition here today. And that gives them a time of 17 hours, 31 seconds, 31 minutes and 12 seconds. And Razio Racing are 33 minutes and 18 seconds behind Race 3R with a cumulative time of 18 hours, 3 minutes and 43 seconds. Now really pushing up and into the top 5, but certainly forcing their position up, and they're doing a great job here, is Glasgow United Cycling Club. 18 hours, 21 minutes and 40 seconds, and that pits them 51 minutes and 15 seconds behind Race 3R. Now, Moon Riders, with our fierce European contenders there. Certainly we've seen Lorenzo Simons come out in the wash as a great sprinter. I believe that was in stage 5 where we saw him take that win there. He is 1 hour, 15 minutes and 23 seconds behind race 3R for a cumulative time of 18 hours, 45 minutes and 48 seconds to round out the top 5 of teams. But we might see some upsets today with a lot of fierce downhills and a lot of relative flats, which will allow our sprinters to have, in theory, enough rest to get to that finish line and really put in a fierce finish line sprint. So with that in mind, let's jump on over to the pins, the start line if you will, and see how our contenders are getting on, see the anxiety, that palpable feeling of contention, of competition beginning to bubble up as our riders get ready to really dash off of that start line there. And we can see our riders getting ready here. We've got Jan Hansen again making that pedal stroke look like an art with just how seamless he makes that 90 to 100 RPM cadence rhythm look. Very, very smooth and very comfortable too. We can see Gordon there as he's out of the saddle, getting ready to get nice and comfortable, one would assume, ready for the race that's coming up. Sub 1 minute here. Now when we get back to our regular screen, you'll see that we have a left window and a right window. So on the left we have live, which is Northern Hemisphere, and then we have a recorded race, which is the Aussie race, or the Southern Hemisphere race if you will, due to the time difference, to be able to allow everyone, facilitate everyone we should say, to be in the same race together. We have 2 different time slots, and all the results from both races will be aggregated into one, and we will jump between them, jump between contenders as we go, and then we'll give you the lowdown on what's going on and the such, and we'll talk about our cumulative distance remaining in the top center of the screen in just a second here. But for now we're going to see everyone make a nice big push to really assert their position in the race as we gun off of the start line here. But to begin with, let's jump on over to the Southern Hemisphere race, aka time slot 1. So we can see here Lorenzo Simons again, but Daniel Schoch is joining him from Moonriders as well. So assumedly both had either some work commitment or family commitment where they couldn't make the Northern Hemisphere race. But we also have Rasmus Feldbald in here as well. And we have Alistair McAlpine as well. So a lot of the Northern Hemisphere riders seem to have not been able to make today's live time. But it's great to see that complementary boosting of the Australia time slot with some of the Northern Hemisphere contenders. So Tristan Dimmock there, I can see that he's beginning to push up. So we're seeing a lot of people still pushing for the contention of their placement right now before things settle into where the teams are going to be, if we're going to see any team effort or whether it's going to be all for one and one for all. And we can see Vince Taylor there pushing up. Kat Coleman, who is currently the number 1 on Women's GC, is here with the rest of our team. It looks like the team are going to try out some team tactics today, perhaps have somebody pulling as the engine and perhaps dosing out the draft benefit. So let's see how that begins and how we can follow that as we go on. We've got Rick Svanberg as well, currently doing a pretty solid effort here, going into the just about sub anaerobic. And again, if this is your first time joining us today for a broadcast, if you want to follow along what kind of physical output our riders are putting into their bikes, into their direct drive smart trainers today, you need only look at the color-coded bar beneath their name tag. So around about your green is going to be around about any rider's personal FTP or functional threshold power, to give it its non-acronym name. And so functional threshold power is the effort that you could hold for about 20 minutes to 1 hour in consistent cadence and consistent physical output. Going above that, you'll see riders begin to go into this kind of like turquoise, which is going your little way above your FTP. So still being optimal around about the FTP. still having a fairly optimal rhythm, but just about that 15% above. Then we go into the light yellows, which show as we're beginning to get into an exertion above that, going into your dark ambers and oranges, or blood orange almost, is where we get sub-anaerobic, and then the full dark red is for anaerobic. And I can see here another Canadian that always makes me very happy to see. We've got Chedror here, and we have Linda Van Dyke, one of the other teammates of Spratty's Koalas. So very happy to see Michael Chedror there for Canada. And as I've said probably a ton of times since stage 9 of Tour de France, I couldn't be happier with that surprise win. Very much a surprise win from Michael Woods, who was my boy in the race. My boy that I was pitting my bets on if I were a betting man. And I kind of thought it's going to be an outside chance because he's 37, just turned 37, and wowee, did he ever smash that race. So we can see our chasers here. So our chase effort is kind of strung out, which is interesting because as much as the climbs string out our chase effort, separating who are the climbers and rolliers from the sprinters, it seems that our relative downhills and frequent downhills seem to do the same as well, with riders deciding whether they're going to relax into an optimal effort, somewhere around about FTP, or even just free will through a downhill, or whether they're going to attack the downhills. Now, these are not aggressive downhills, so you certainly can attack them, but it's enough where it can certainly bring in the difference of opinion on how to challenge a downhill. And thank you, Christoph. I always love seeing your comments. Wonderful to always have such nice comments. And thank you to all of the viewers for joining us live. We do appreciate all of you. And we know sometimes it takes some confidence to tap in a comment, so we're just happy for you to join us. But Christophe Contant is a wonderful contender who is in the West London Pedalers team. And we can see here Wouter Claus is taking the lead. I'm very excited about that. Wouter has often been an underdog, and if you've followed at all the React e-cycling race series, he is certainly one of the more fierce sprinters, arguably also a bit of a rollier, kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Now, is that teammates together who are doing those tactics together? Or is that aggressive pushing tactics there? So we've got Moonriders, but also complementing Wouter Claus from Belgium, we have Lorenzo Simons, Daniel Schuss, Francois Icard, Mike Wareham, and Joe Rowe. And with Cadel Sharks, who are also right in the lead here, we've got Ben Kirkboduk, Chris Morgan, Luke Webster, Noel Holder, and Tristan Dimmock. So let's take a look at what's going on in the live race. So this time, for the past couple of stages, we've had Mark Rowbottom in the Southern Hemisphere, aka Time Slot 1 race. Now we've got him in the Northern Hemisphere one. I mean, he was just on the lead there, but we had a couple of riders kind of dive bomb the corner, which I've been excited to see if dive bombing would come in as a tactic. So that's taking the inside or the apex of tight corners, which can be sometimes a dangerous tactic, but can pay off as it just did here. So we've got Said Carradine in close contention from Race 3R. We've got Race 3R, three members there. So we've got Anders Ostergaard, and we also have Jonathan Orr, of course, and Ryan Miller right in the lead here alongside Razio's Mark Rowbottom. But pushing along, we have Andy Plager there. But complementing Mark Rowbottom, we have Andrei Krajewski, we have Ingmar van Beers, we have Igor Kopse, of course, Nick Greenhall, and Matt Hammond. So Mark is finding his place right now in a comfortable FTP. Probably a very good tactic, knowing that there's a whole bunch of race to come, despite there being a downhill here. But we can certainly see Andy Plager beginning to attack the downhill. We saw him in the anaerobic there. So much as we're also seeing Ryan Miller in the anaerobic. Sub-anaerobic, we've got Jeppe Snevert. So with OTR punchers, we have got Kevin Buckley, Tony Lake, Andy Wedess, James Ogilvie, and again, thank you, James, for your wonderful effort of covering me out on Saturday. We do appreciate it. Sean Lavelle and Stephen Elliott. So we've got James here, number 11, certainly in this lead bunchy at the moment, the breakaway. And it's quite a nice peloton at the front here. So certainly it looks like there has been some mutual decision, if you will, agree to disagree decision for the contenders of most of the teams to really attack the downhills. But anyway, joining Race 3R here, we've got Jonathan Orr, who's right up at the front here. We also have Said Carradine. We've got Ryan Miller. We've got Evan Oystensen. We've got Anders Ostergaard and Jeppe Snevert. So Jonathan Orr in the 4th place position right now. Andy Plager beginning to perhaps pace out his effort a bit and deciding when to attack on the downhill and when to pace. James going sub-anaerobic as he decided to attack. And it's interesting to see, so you can follow along with me. I gave you that description a short time ago about how to follow the physical efforts coming out of each rider with that color-coded bar beneath every rider's name tag. But you can follow along with who's attacking the downhills and who's pacing and where they're choosing to attack specifically. You can follow along with our elevation profile by looking to the bottom of our screen. So this kind of descending column there at the bottom center of your screen is our elevation profile. So most people deciding to attack here. So James Ogilvie right in the bunch here, and because it's spread out, you'll see the numbers look a little bit sporadic, but the calculation system of Wahoo RGT, which is the virtual cycling platform that we find ourselves in today for today's race, is of course calculating this correctly. It's seeing who is ahead and who is not so much ahead. So Ryan Miller for the United States and for Race 3R is in the lead, but again it looks like, as in previous races, we're seeing rider position kind of not be a universal thing. So taking the center of the road, we've got Jonathan Orr, who's really pushed ahead there. But joining Stevie Cooper here, who you can see in the number 6 position, right in the center of your screen there, or the center of our race window, for Glasgow United Cycling Club, we have James Melville, Alistair McAlpine, who's in the time slot 1 race, and Ian Hepburn. So Mark Rowbottom going into the anaerobic, attacking the downhill, and who is that for Razia Racing who just surged ahead? Is that Igor? And we also have Anthony Debray pushing ahead here. Oh, that's Alex Plager getting ahead again. Fantastic effort from Alex here. This may be Alex's race. We may see him have a much better position than we've seen in previous races, as I'm almost certain that Alex is more of a sprinter. We've seen him cook his cardio effort maybe a bit too early, and maybe even cook the effort in his quads a little bit too early in previous races, but he seems to be in a position where he's really found where he can pace his downhill effort and then know when to attack and really put in a bit of a surge, as we've seen so far. So maybe this really is the day for sprinters, maybe it is the day for Alex Plager, but only time will tell. We've got Jan Varner here, who is really pushing up close to the front for the big effort here in the downhill. And Kasper Hedderdam, who has been a top contender for E-Cycle Club Denmark, who has very kindly partnered with us here at ZMS Esports Studio for the Chase the Yellow Tour series, and thank you for that. We do appreciate it. So Kasper also attacking as we're getting into the relative flat here. But what's going on in time slot 1? Let's take a look. So we've got Wouter Claus here right at the front, Alistair McAlpine for the Glasgow United Cycling Club. And on the back there, we can see getting a bit of draft benefit and being able to pace his effort as such in the green is Rasmus Feldbau, also from the E-Cycle Club Denmark. But we have, and I'm struggling to remember who Secure the Bag is, but for Cadel Sharks, we have Secure the Bag charging off the front there, sub-anaerobic, as we get into what is arguably not so much a downhill here, but a relative flat. And Chris Morgan here, I'm hastened to bet that they're beginning to get into attempting their pace line again. And they're bringing a whole bunch of teams along with them this time, perhaps not so much willingly at this point. It just seems to be that the contenders from teams such as Moon Riders and the Glasgow United Cycling Club have just managed to hitch a toe with the draft benefit here. We've got Nick Greenhalgh there on the back. Almost looks like two pace lines here, side by side, making arguably a bit of a geese emigration echelon, like the V that you see when they fly south. Alistair here taking a bit of a lead for a moment. Lorenzo Simons hot on his heels, and we saw Lorenzo take that win as a sprinter on stage 5. So right now I've got an eagerly trained eye on Lorenzo Simons as Chris Morgan starts to push ahead there. We'll have to see what happens with this potentially a pace line as we continue during today's race. But my friends, we have a whole ton of fun, and hopefully you have the same amount of fun as I do, following who is striking off the most amount of distance the fastest, whether it's going to be the live Northern Hemisphere race or Time Slot 1 replay race. But for now, joining Casper Heiderdam, we've got Kurt Pedersen, Nicky Haugaard and Rasmus Feldbau. I believe Rasmus Feldbau was in Time Slot 1, if my very short-term memory serves. And putting in a very good effort here to chase. But we're seeing Casper begin to fall behind here. So he's certainly nowhere near the back of the race. He's still in a good chase position. They're beginning to fall off the lead group here, which is still a fairly sizable group. Again, perhaps because of the downhills, making it somewhat easier for a lot of contenders to hold tight to the front. But certainly this is no effort to be sniffed at either way. There's certainly going to be a lot of pain for those quads today. And so we got Tom Bovry of the Netherlands here with Race 3R. Beginning to push ahead, catch on to some draft benefit here. And I believe I can see there in his very iconic Vixen, the Velocity team jersey, that would be Carl Persson. Carl Sander Persson with RGT Sweden. Carl is a fantastic rider to watch. We saw him on the webcam a short while ago in the lower center window when we had the webcams open. I was very interested by Carl having the hoods kind of rolled a bit forwards like that, and by the fact that he's putting in such phenomenal effort in those high attention gears, as you'll be able to tell by kind of the slower rhythm of the cadence, but also putting through a very, very high amount of energy that his body overheats so much that he's just got the bib shots on, no base layer, no jersey. Anyway, I'm getting back to my point here about seeing the competition between both the live side of the race and Time Slot 1, aka Southern Hemisphere. So if I avert your eyes for just a second to the top center of the screen, you'll see two gold and black checkered flags. The left one says live, which is our live Northern Hemisphere side of the race, and of course the right side is going to be Time Slot 1, aka Southern Hemisphere. Now, that, as you can see, that is distance striking down, so it's cumulative distance remaining. And right now it is neck and neck. We've had a bit of fun, and hopefully, like I say, hopefully you have shared that fun with me, of seeing who can strike off that distance remaining the fastest. And it's certainly began with it being Northern Hemisphere, but then was taken over by Southern Hemisphere for a while, and is now for the past couple of races been neck and neck. Anyway, we'll get back to taking a quick look at the Southern Hemisphere side of the race here. So we can see Rasmus Felbard had a lead for a while there, beginning to drop off, and it's beginning to look like, again, a bit of a cross-team pace line. It does appear to my somewhat trained eyes that Rasmus Felbard had pushed ahead there to be able to drop away from the lead of that pace line and let whoever felt the strongest take over. And they may even be discussing this crossing team boundaries in the baked-in race radio that is a baked-in function of Wahoo RGT. So we've got Ash Yelland here, certainly putting in a good effort. Andy Penn, we've got Vince Taylor, we've got Bilo, we've got Sean Knight, Barry Lowe of the, I believe that's Cadell Sharks, holding as the chase group here, looking to catch on, to use that metaphor once again, like a fish to a baited hook, catch on to that incredibly phenomenal pace line at the front there, which forms our lead breakaway. So we've got Stewie's Magpies, where Barry Lowe, my apologies, Stewie's Magpies, not Cadell Sharks, and complementing Barry Lowe is Jeff Tipper, Peter McAnulty, Peter Ridley, Phil Tollest, and Rob Drady. We've got Christo here, he's in the chasse patate position, the potato chase position, which is apparently a term coined by the Tour de France to label that position where a rider is without a group and is stuck between groups with a large swath of tarmac between the group ahead and the group behind, getting no draft benefit and having to push foot over foot through that chain tension, through the chain resistance, to ideally catch up to a team or be engulfed by a team. So we've got Rob Drady there, who we just saw, Peter McAnulty. We've got Michelle Williams as well. We've got Peter Neuteling. And Peter will be a familiar name to anybody who follows both Love Triple T or Love Team Time Trial, to take it out of acronym, and also the React E-Cycling Race Series, all of which are broadcast here live on ZMS Esports Studio. By the way, you can watch any of our broadcasts either through the Facebook page at ZMS Esports Studio, through the YouTube channel ZMS Live Stream, or through any smart device to which you can download the ESTV app. So let's take a quick jump on over to the live Northern Hemisphere side of the race, where we have Anthony Debray for France, and again I'm really excited to see him join the Tour somewhat later in. I believe he began in stage 5 with the races, but certainly has been a hot contender in the React E-Cycling Race Series as well as Love Triple T. Mark Rowbottom here beginning to push off the front, Said Carradine going into full anaerobic to push ahead, and we've got Christophe Contant, who left that wonderful comment earlier, is in the somewhere near the rear of this chase group here. But Andy Plager again coming to the front, again beginning to pace his efforts, knowing when to pace back a little bit, enjoy some of that draft benefit, get a little bit closer to his FTP, maybe even a little bit lower than FTP, and then knowing when to give us a surge. And he's right now here on the front trying to pull the breakaway ahead, perhaps even trying to soften the effort in the quads and in the glutes of our other contenders, and also bring along Mark Rowbottom, give some draft benefit while he's at it, but also, like I say, turn those legs to in our other races. Anthony Debray beginning to push up the convex of the road here, or the far side of the road, coming back into hot contention. Alex Plager hopefully finding his spot of where he can hold again, ready to put in another surge. But wow, what a phenomenal chase effort there from Casper Hedderden. Came from 23rd position. He was also in a bit of a chasse patate position and has come right to the head of the race again. Certainly Casper has been a phenomenal contender in this. But we're going to see a lot of jostling where this is a sprinter's stage for that lead position, and that is going to change, I believe, second on second. And here we go, we can see somebody going into a bit of a freewheel effort and then coming back into lower pedaling. Anders Ostergaard pushing ahead. So race 3R right on the tip of the spear, if you will, of the breakaway. And I believe we're going to see then jostle for that lead position quite often here. Stevie Cooper from Glasgow United Cycling Club coming ahead as well. Jeppe Snevert also in race 3R, not far behind. And Anthony for France is getting into that position to surge again, going full anaerobic. Really pushing ahead, and again looking like he's attempting to really drag out the effort of the breakaway and really soften said effort. Said Carradine not far behind, shoulder to shoulder with Anthony. Jeppe not far behind. And we are beginning to stretch out this lead breakaway. I do love the added sound effect of the helicopter rotors that makes us, and I'm sure you too, feel like we're at the Tour de France. Like we're watching live on some TV in some bar somewhere. And wow, look at this. Carl Persson from RGT Sweden is pushing ahead at the lead of the race. And we can see him on webcam there, getting into the top end of that VO2. Mouth agape, breathing hard. But the trick now is not to get into the shallow breaths and to try and recover that VO2. So VO2 being the maximal of where you can be taking those nice deep breaths before your cardio system forces you into shallow breaths. But I'm pretty sure from having seen Carl contend in races on many virtual cycling platforms that he's got this, that his VO2 max is probably incredibly long. But what is going on in the Southern Hemisphere side of the race? So we've got Noel Holder here on the rear of what I'm almost certain now is becoming a paceline, a cross-team paceline effort. And again, whether or not this is the incredibly friendly work of Cadel Sharks once again, showing how incredibly hospitable the Australians are, or whether or not this is just happens to be a mutual benefit for now. But we have just crossed our halfway point, which was denoted by our purple marker there. So with Cadel Sharks, we've got Bo Duke, who is arguably the lead contender for the team, and joined by Ben Kirk, Chris Morgan, Luke Webster, Noel Holder, who we just saw at the back there, and we can just see Ben Kirk right here, as well as Tristan Dimmock. So we're past our purple marker, halfway point, and we're still neck and neck with the distance remaining between both our live or Northern Hemisphere side of the race and time slot 1 or our Southern Hemisphere side of the race. Jonathan Orr and Said Carradine here taking the lead for the Northern Hemisphere side of the race. So being neck and neck in distance remaining, our Northern Hemisphere side of the race would also have passed the purple marker over halfway. And joining Jonathan and Said, just to refresh your memory as we go, is Jan Vanner, Evan Oystensen, Anders Ostergaard, and Jeppe Snevert. We can see Kasper Hederdem's name tag there in the middle distance, going into that full anaerobic, putting in a phenomenal chase effort, looking to catch up, looking to eat away at that distance of tarmac, the swath of tarmac between them. But Jonathan Orr here for the USA in the lead, followed hotly by teammate Said. And it looks like this downhill, this arguably chicane of relative flats, tiny little climbs, and then going into a peak and trough of a downhill, is beginning to stretch out our breakaway once again. Kasper here is being chased by fellow Scandinavian Carl, but also Anders Ostergaard, a fellow Dane, but a rival Dane with race 3R. And here we go, a battle once again between Denmark and Sweden. I'm sure reminiscent of the Viking Age. And Anthony Debray coming in hot for France. So we've got the Viking trio there. If you get the historical reference, wonderful, thank you so much. But the reference is to Rollo the Viking, who formed the Normans, who would later conquer England and conquer the Saxons. The joke there being that the Saxons thought they had conquered the Vikings. They had no idea they'd be back. So James Melville here with Glasgow United Cycling Club in a really good position here alongside Alex Plager, who I said I've got an eager eye on as we get into this. Christophe Contant, who again left that wonderful comment earlier, doing some phenomenal effort for the joint team, the union team of West London Peddlers. So I'm interested to see how Christophe gets on. He's not often been in the lead position of the race yet, so this is going to be one that I follow with a very eager eye. But also complementing Christophe, we have Dave Morrison, who is the ringleader, if you will, the general of West London VR. We have Tobias or Toby Bjork. We have Felix Castro, Michael Serge, and Jürgen Janssens. So Christophe Contant in a really good place right in the middle of this little bunchy that we have as our breakaway. Taking draft benefit from all sides, which is going to put Christophe in a really good position to hopefully put in a bit of attack and a bit of a surge when he has calculated is the best place to do so. Stevie Cooper joining Glasgow United Cycling Club is also in a good place, so putting the team 2 out of 4 of the members in a good place to put in a nice big attack and hopefully get a really good GC time for the whole team. But chasing here as one of our following chase groups, we've got Gordon Jackson there, who we saw on our webcam, but we have mostly E-Cycle Club Denmark team too. We've got Jan Hansen, we've got Brian Christensen, we've got Jørgen Kolvig, we've got Kjeld Høy, and I did learn how to pronounce that correctly, René Zachman, and Henrik Larsen. So we can see René Zachman there, putting in some good effort. Mike Wareham, from the Moon Riders team, I believe, putting in a really good chase effort there. Andy Street as well. So Moon Riders, we've got Mike Wareham here, but he's also being complemented by Wouter Claus, who I'm hoping we'll see at the lead of the, I believe is in time slot 1 race in a minute when we jump back over to them. Joe Rowe, we've got Francois Icard, Daniel Schasch, and Lorenzo Simons. I believe most of the team is actually in time slot 1 race today. So now that we've seen a bit of the live race, which is Northern Hemisphere, why don't we jump on over to the Aussie side of the race, time slot 1. So we've got Noel Holder here taking the lead on what was a bit of a pace line, looking to dissipate a little bit. Maybe positioning for who's going to be lead, who's dropping in at certain positions, which is entirely possible. Lorenzo Simons coming into a good position. Alistair McAlpine holding on very strong here. It's interesting to see Alistair right at the lead of the race as well. And a very good thing to see him there. So maybe Alistair is a sprinter who I've not really given enough credit to, but I'm hoping that we will find out. So chasing here, we've got Ryan Wilmot, we've got Vince Taylor, we've got Ash Yelland, and they're looking to catch on to that pace line just ahead of them. So they're in EF Education Post, EF Easy Education Post team kit, which is, that's an interesting team to follow in the Tour de France for sure. So we've got Phil Tolhurst here, we've got Barry Lowe just behind, and we've got Andy Walker as well. It is interesting to see so many Northern Hemisphere riders in the Southern Hemisphere race today. But let's see what this will do to the results regardless. So webcam here. Top left, we've got Gordon Jackson from OTR Punches. We've got from E-Cycle Club Denmark, Jan Hansen there. Again, making the cadence look like it's just easy street with that nice, easy rhythm and very symmetrical rhythm as well. Well done, Jan. It looks like to be around 90 to 100. Then bottom center, we have Carl Persson. Much like myself, Carl blows up in the body heat, and we can see that he's a bit of a head sweater too. And again, I've said it a few times during the Chase the Yellow Tour, I'm such an aggressive head sweater that I have hopefully not irreparably damaged my steering column. It has a very aggressive calcium buildup on it, but like I've covered before, I do have 2 outside road bikes, so certainly I'm not in a bad position with the indoor road bike here. But I guess at some point I really should do some maintenance on it and clear some of that calcium. So Jonathan Orr and Said Carradine are beginning to really just fly away with the race here in just a 2-man breakaway, right at the lead of our live or Northern Hemisphere race. But we are in still a relative downhill, and we're seeing some quite good efforts here coming out of riders such as Mark Rowbottom, putting in that sub-aerobic effort and really pushing along this Chase group. Alex Plager beginning to push ahead again. So we're seeing a bit of a sprint, a bit of a surge from Alex and Anthony just behind. Alex Plager with Razio Racing. Alex has certainly got a keen eye from myself today on where he's going to place in today's race. Certainly this seems to be the terrain, the mix of terrain that certainly complements Alex's riding style. Certainly perhaps a terrain style that he's used to either riding or racing on in the outside world, and knows how that physicality of it feels, seemingly, of how to pace, where to surge, and again where to drop back once again to pacing. So with Razio pushing ahead and pushing our chase effort ahead, we've got Mark Rowbottom and Anthony Debray side by side, looking like they're trying to share draft benefit arguably with one another. And Jan Vanner looking to catch up with his teammates as well as Jeppe Snevert here, Christophe Contant, and we've got somebody else here from West London. This is David Hart from West London Peddlers. Doug Hart. Doug just came out of nowhere, like a bullet, like a shot. But is this a surge that's going to fall off quickly, or one that he can hold alongside Mark Rowbottom and Jeppe Snevert? Jeppe has been doing some pacing here, knowing when to put in the bit of the surge and where he can hold it. Casper ahead of them in hot contention to chase once again. Hopefully won't cook his cardio effort and his physicality with the legs there before the time has come. So while we have about 10 to 11 kilometers remaining, well, what if you, as a viewer of this series, want to compete? Well, of course, it is sadly a bit too late to form a team and join, because as you did have to register with us here at ZMS Esports Studio and register your team and your team members. But that doesn't mean you can't contend in the Chase the Yellow Tour series. From July 4th through to July 31st, we have Challenge Road. And you can join this at any time, day or night, 24/7 in that time period. And you can join up as a solo rider. It's treated as an individual time trial. So fastest time wins from start line to finish line, but it's a toughie. As you can see with the white line that's beginning to stretch along your screen there, that's actually the elevation profile. It is 2 kilometers cumulative climbing in a 34-kilometer race. So it's going to be a toughie. Give it a go, have some fun with it. I can't promise your legs will agree with me that it's fun, but give it a go. And we will announce shortly after the 31st there, we will announce the GC table, the general classification, who was the fastest, etc. And you can find out who was the fastest by joining us on the ZMS Esports Studio Facebook page, where we will post that as an update. So let's take a quick look at, well, we've got Damon here. Hey Damon. Damon does our live vision mixing of all the wonderful virtual web cameras, all the wonderful graphics we see on the screen, and of course bringing me in and bringing my audio in. Thank you so much, Damon, for your efforts. Damon joins us, of course, live from London in the UK. Why don't we take a look at the Aussie, the Southern Hemisphere effort on time slot 1. So we've got Bo Duke flying off the front here. So if you ask me who am I going to put my money on from the Aussies, Bo Duke seems to consistently get that position for me, but we may see a hot contention come in once again from Lorenzo Simons. It's anybody's game right now. We've got Nick Greenhalgh coming up to the front. He may even bring in a surprise for us. And we've got a whole bunch of different nationalities and different teams in this, again, seemingly a pace line, showing no end to the friendliness of both the Aussies in general and Cadel Sharks as a team. So we've got Daniel Schosch, Alf Deutschland, pushing hard on the front there, followed hotly by Bo Duke, Nick Greenhalgh, and Lorenzo Simons, as well as Rasmus Feldbard for E-Cycle Club Denmark. Rasmus hasn't often pushed to the front, but we may see an upset come just yet. I doubt it will be an upset on the level of, speaking of Denmark and the Danish, of the Viking raids on the east coast of England, but it might be an upset nonetheless. So it looks like maybe Bo Duke is trying to push the multi-team pace line to stretch out a little bit here, maybe dissipate the effort from other team members, of other teams, I should say, and really bring forward that of his fellow teammates in Cadel Sharks. Chris Morgan, fellow teammate, pushing ahead, but pushing ahead of him is Lorenzo. So this is going to be an interesting one to follow on the Aussie side of the race as we close in on the final 7 kilometers. But as we do close in on those final 7 kilometers, how is the Northern Hemisphere side of the race coming on? Well, we've got Jonathan and Sage still just flying ahead here. I haven't quite seen if they are switching around their positions, whether Jonathan takes his turn as the engine and Sage enjoys the draft for a little bit, or whether they're just deciding that Jonathan has really got it in him to hold a really good sub-anaerobic pace. But we will find out as we go along. And it's beginning to be Race 3R taking the lead. We've got Anders Ostergaard here, a rival Dane to Rasmus Feldbard and to Kasper Hetterdam. And we've also got T. Debray there as well. Anthony Debray is pushing ahead here for France. Christophe Contant, who again I'm keeping a very eager eye on. I know that Christophe certainly has the legs in him from having seen him really put in some fantastic surge efforts in the React E-Cycling race series, which once again you can either go back and watch previous races we've done, both on ZMS live stream on YouTube or ZMS Esports Studio on Facebook or through the ESTV app. So we've got Tom Bivray here, pushing ahead for Race 3R as well. Mark Robottom in hot contention for Razio Racing. Again, with this chase team that we join, I missed what caused that upset, what allowed both Jonathan and Said to really fly ahead. But certainly it looks like the team is trying to dish out, all the teams here I should say, are looking to dish out where they can put in their surges to both hold a good position for themselves, but also push the chase group along to catch onto the rear wheels of both Said and Jonathan, who are still just flying here. So it looks like they are about half a kilometer ahead right now. It may even be close to impossible for our chase group there to catch on, but anything is possible. Seems as we still have relative downhills here. It could even be that Jonathan and Said may even cook their attack efforts by pushing maybe a bit too hard, but they are certainly very fierce racers, so it's certainly not out the league of possibility that as a racer, both Said and Jonathan, that certainly they might have this in the bag right now. Alex Plagueis in a good position, James Melville pushing ahead, putting him in the third place position right now. So maybe James has been pacing all this time, and maybe he's got to a point where he knows that he can hold around about his surge effort, maybe a little bit less for the next several kilometers. So beginning to push ahead. If I avert your eyes back to the top center of the screen there, looking at our distance remaining both for live and Southern Hemisphere, we can see that getting ahead again, only by about 100 meters or so, is the Northern Hemisphere side of the race. Let's jump on over for a short while back to the Southern Hemisphere side, as we can see what might still be a pace line effort. It now is beginning to look once again like two pace lines. It may even just be coincidence. We've got Chris Morgan there, followed hotly by Tristan Dimmick, so teammates there, but Rasmus Felbard is right in the mix there. I'm wondering if we may see a Scandinavian upset as we get into the final 4 to 5 kilometers here. Welter Claus is still in the mix here, so we may even see Welter Claus show us those big impressive efforts that we've certainly seen, again, if you follow the React E-Cycling Race Series and the Love Triple T series. All of which take place, by the way, here on Wahoo RGT. What kind of cadence are each of the riders doing? Well, you can follow that simply by looking at the avatars. The animation of each of our avatars, it will follow the actual cadence, the real world cadence of their assigned riders, who is assigned to each avatar. So long as there is a cadence meter attached to any given rider that is baked in as part of a Direct Drive Smart Trainer. But anyone who is contending today on either a fluid or magnetic turbo trainer, so a rear wheel on trainer, they will likely and ideally should have a cadence meter on a cadence sensor, which is a cell battery powered meter that you attach by elastic band to the inside of your left crank arm. So Boduk taking the lead here for a short while as our pace line pushes ahead, but let's jump on back over to the live on Northern Hemisphere side of the race. So again, Jonathan and Said just flying, getting into the full-on aerobic here, and this confirms it. They are switching their position from time to time of who's going to be the engine and who's going to give draft benefit to the other. But even with draft benefit, we can see Jonathan there going from between his FTP and going up to being sub anaerobic, so it's not quite a rest, but enough to not be in full surge mode, full attack mode. And before we do provide the commentary as we get to the tantalizing finish line, yes, on the 20th of July, aka Thursday, we will have the next stage, Mount Vernier, and I will be with you there once again. So another climbing stage on Thursday. So we will separate the rollers and climbers from the sprinters, but today has been a sprinter's haven as we close down that finish line to find out which sprinter and or roller will take it. Arguably, we do have the rollers in the front on the Northern Hemisphere side of the race right now. So Jonathan Orr and Said Keradine. Again, if you've missed any of the stages so far, rouleur is the arguably universal umbrella term given to a roadie or a road racer, rider, who is of all abilities, so climbing, sprinting, and your relative flats as well. They may not excel at any one of them, that is the caveat, however, but they may do. And we've got a rouleur in chase there, getting into somewhere close to a chase position. That's Kasper Hetterdam. But on the Southern Hemisphere side of the race, we have Rasmus Feldbald, also from E-Cycle Club Denmark, who's right in the fore of the lead breakaway for the Aussie side of the race. We're in a relative flat now, not so much of a downhill. It's a 0.3, a minus 0.3, so arguably completely flat. So we're still looking at what might be a cross-team pace line on the Aussie side of the race. I'm certainly loving the camaraderie we've seen out of that side of the race consistently now through the Chase the Yellow Tour series. So Wouter Claus coming right up to the front of the pack on the Southern Hemisphere or time slot 1 side of the race. So it looks like opening up to be almost 200 meters ahead. The Northern Hemisphere side of the race is now beginning to eat away the most distance remaining. So on the Northern Hemisphere window here, we can see the neon pink marker coming up. This is what they would call in France, in the Tour de France, the Flamme Rouge, or La Flamme Rouge, I guess. The red flame, which is the name given to the marker that denotes 1 kilometer remaining. Obviously, when you cross it, sub 1 kilometer. So, still half a kilometer ahead. It looks like for certain at this point that Race 3R, Sade and Jonathan have it in the bag, as Boduk, for the Southern Hemisphere side of the race, begins to push past the Flamme Rouge. And it looks like our pace line is breaking up now. The allegiance has fallen asunder. The alliance has broken. Divided we have fallen. As we begin to get into a position where on the Aussie side of the race, our sprinters are looking to get into a position to surge, get into the drops, really push out of the saddle and really gun it through those crank arms. Do the all-important sprinting that they were put on this earth to do. So Sade here taking his position as the engine for the duo team, the duo man team of Jonathan Orr and Sade Carradine, taking the lead for Race 3R. Boduk has fallen back to second place here. Secured the bag for Cadel Sharks, really surging ahead there. So yeah, for sure, the day has been taken by Jonathan Orr and Sade Carradine. Not far behind, presumably for the third place position. Secure the bag. I'm going to have to familiarise myself with who that is. Oh, that was neck and neck there. I don't know who that was between Nick and Alasdair, but we'll find out soon. Wouter Claus coming in for 7th place position, certainly pushing up the league here. Rasmus for 8th. That's very exciting to see Rasmus move up and really show us what he's got as a sprinter. Daniel Schoch as well. But we've got Kasper Hetterdam here, really surged ahead from that chase group. Really pushed himself ahead of that chase group, coming in for the 3rd place position in the Northern Hemisphere side of things, but will be lower down in the overall GC. Carl Zanderpersen as the fellow Scandinavian there, coming in. And wow, what a load of sprints we saw there. I really don't know who took that between Alasdair and Nick. My eyes just didn't catch it in time. But we've got Ben Kirk here, and we've got Noel Holder, also from Cadel Sharks, looking to get good placements here. Doug Hart with West London Peddlers, also getting a good time and a good position here. Really pushing up West London Peddlers in their GC. Fantastic stuff, guys, and wonderful efforts from everyone on course today. It's been very exciting to see the sprinters really come to the fore and really push ahead. It does look like our rollers in Sade and Jonathan have taken the day again. Igor Kopse. So this does show that, yes, this can separate the sprinters from the rollers. Our very impressive roller, Igor Kopse, a little bit behind here. Alex Plager maybe lost the tail of that chase pack, but still not in a bad position here. When you cross that finish line alongside Igor Kopse, you've done pretty good, I would say. Now Hoder Benkirk coming to the Flamme Rouge here, as Alex Plager and Igor almost side by side here as teammates cross that finish line. Well done, guys, and well done to Noel and Ben here as they close in on that finish line alongside Kevin Barkley for OTR punches. Nikki Haugaard for E-Cycle Club Denmark. So it looks like E-Cycle Club Denmark is going to get a good cumulative GC today. James Ogilvie, who was right in the lead at the start of the race. Fantastic effort there, James. Held on to that lead team that became the chase pack for quite a while. Fantastic effort. Certainly nothing to be sniffed at there, my friend. So we can see working together here as Engine, as Puller and Draftee. We've got Ben and Noel as they begin to round our final corner here. And not far behind, you can see that same yellow coming up on our left-hand window for the Northern Hemisphere or live side of the race for James Ogilvie as well. Wonderful effort there. Fantastic stuff. So we've got more Aussies working together here to get beyond that finish line. And James Ogilvie, who very kindly covered me out on Saturday, as I've said before, just crossing the finish line there. Ash Yelland. And Vince Taylor as well. So it looks like Gordon Jackson is not far behind as well. Gordon, who we saw on our webcam there, forming the top left webcam window. Jürgen Janssens there with West London Peddlers. So where have we been racing today? We've been taking the stage that has been used, I believe, in the Tour de France, Sion. And on Thursday, we will be taking on Mount Vernier. So today's race has been 38.2 kilometers. Again, we had that relative flat with lots of relative downhills, which made it that sprinter's paradise that I spoke of, with only 96 meters of cumulative elevation gain. So we have our provisional overall general classification results ready for one and all. Let's jump on over and take a look. So this is provisional because we do have a time slot 2, so there is a third time slot, and the finalative GC results will come in at the start of Thursday's race. So the ones that you saw today at the start of today's race were the finalative ones for stage 6. But looking at the men's GC provisional for today's race, stage 7, Jonathan Orr has stolen the day with 6 hours, 31 minutes and 11 seconds. And bear in mind, this is not based on just today's stage, this is cumulative time for all stages so far. 3 minutes and 32 seconds behind. So losing a little bit of time to Jonathan here is Casper Hederdam. Surging up to the third place position is Said Keradine, teammate of Jonathan Orr in race 3R, with 6 hours, 38 minutes and 34 seconds, 7 minutes and 23 seconds behind Jonathan. Exactly the same time behind Jonathan as Said, at 7 minutes and 23 seconds behind, is Bo Duke, also at 6 hours, 38 minutes and 35 seconds. Rounded out the top 5 in the GC for men's is Tristan Dimmock, also from Cadel Shark. So 2 teammates back to back in the table there. And Tristan is 8 minutes and 17 seconds behind Jonathan for a cumulative time in the GC of 6 hours, 39 minutes and 29 seconds. But what about the provisional GC as it stands after stage 7 for women? Well, Kat Coleman is still holding on fiercely to that number 1 position with a cumulative time from stage 1 through to stage 7 of 8 hours, 32 minutes and 14 seconds. 4 minutes and 43 seconds behind Kat is Michelle Williams, 8 hours, 36 minutes and 57 seconds. Also with Spratty's Koalas, and once again it's all Spratty's forming the top 5 now. For now, it's Melissa Fanning, 6 minutes and 17 seconds behind, 8 hours, 38 minutes and 31 seconds. Wendy Gallagher, aka Wendy Williams, 1 hour, 5 minutes and 21 seconds behind Kat at 9 hours, 37 minutes and 35 seconds. Linda Van Dyke, who we saw throughout the race there, is 2 hours, 43 minutes and 17 seconds behind Kat for a cumulative GC so far of 11 hours, 15 minutes and 31 seconds. So that rounds out the top 5 of the women's GC provisional. But what about for the teams as a whole? Let's take a look. So Race 3R still holding on very strong, but getting the time down to only 1 minute and 8 seconds behind is Cadel Sharks, really hot on the heels of Race 3R. But Race 3R stand at a cumulative time of 20 hours, 3 minutes and 38 seconds. And that 1 minute and 8 seconds behind places Cadel Sharks at 20 hours, 4 minutes and 46 seconds. 35 minutes and 51 seconds behind is Razio Racing, placing them in a cumulative GC time of 20 hours, 39 minutes and 30 seconds. Still holding on strong to a top 5 position in the 4th place is Glasgow United Cycling Club, and they are 52 minutes and 31 seconds behind Race 3R with a cumulative time of 20 hours, 56 minutes and 10 seconds. Rounding up the top 5 is Moon Riders with all those fantastic European contenders there. 1 hour, 15 minutes and 37 seconds behind Race 3R with a cumulative time thus far of 21 hours, 19 minutes and 16 seconds. So wowee, what a race we saw today. Race 3R holding on strong. But can stage 8 as the climbing stage really cause some big upsets, especially with Cadel Sharks being so far behind? Well, we will find out on Thursday with stage 8, aka Montvenier, and that is going to be 32.8 kilometers of not the most fierce climbing we've seen, but certainly a lot of mixed terrain between relative flats and some pretty fierce climbs that will have certainly a sting in the tail for the old quads and glutes. And we will see how that will sort the wheat from the chaff and the effeminate from the possibly Canadian, as they say in dodgeball, on Thursday. So thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure to bring you commentary today and to host today's race for you. My name has been Mark. You've been a wonderful audience. Go away and have a wonderful day, please. Enjoy.